What's up? I'm Bern. This is Haas, and we're talking the Alliance of American Football.
That's right. It's the Allies podcast starting now.
Joining us today on the AAF Allies podcast is a guy who's been covering the AAF since day one. It's Rod Villagomez of the Alliance Football Podcast. Hey, Rod.
Hey, Haas. Hey, Bern. Oh, I've been always wanted to say that.
This
We're all
is so
together.
exciting.
I know. It's so awesome. No, thanks for having me, you guys. This is I do enjoy coming on folks' podcasts, and I enjoy your guys' energy and the fact that you are just so happy through your entire podcast. It makes me happy listening.
That's Bern just carrying me, though. I'm just like slugging along, and she brings the positivity. You can tell.
God, he's such a snooze, Rod. Rod, you have such great energy. Like I vibe when I listen to your podcast. I love it.
Oh, stop. I just like to talk quite a bit, and I'm glad that people enjoy listening to it because my wife gets tired of it. And so the fact that, a few hundred people every week get to listen to it other than her, I think makes me validated in my life.
Hey, your voice is like seriously though made for podcasting and radio. Like, is your background in voice stuff at all? Like, how did you even get started with this?
To be honest with you, I mean, look, as a kid, I talked all the time and people told me to shut up. So it's funny that I'm in a career now where, I do some talking because I joined the Army at an early age, left school to join, left school, but when I graduated from school, to join the Army and ran around for a few years. And it wasn't until I was almost done with my 10 years that I served. And I thought, I used to sit around and call football games on my couch, and my friends used to get mad at me and said, look, if you're going to do this, then get paid for it because we're tired of listening to you say the same thing that the announcer is going to say in 2 seconds. So I thought, well, there may be something there. So when I got out of the Army, I got out of active duty and I started looking around to try to do this sports casting thing. I ended up going to my local community college and I got hooked up with the radio television program. And through that, I mean, I've done radio, I've done television, I've done a little bit of everything in this media world. And so, it wasn't until then that I decided that my voice was probably more pleasant to listen to than I gave it credit for. And started to pursue it. So yeah, I've done some radio, and I actually instruct now. I'm an instructor at the college that I went to, that I teach radio and television. So yeah, I don't know. I've just been talking for a long time, and like I said, I managed to find a way to make it work for me.
Okay,
Yeah,
you just got like 10 times cooler. Can you tell me how to not sound like a big boob on this podcast? What are your instructing tips so that I can improve? Do you have any tips?
To be honest with you, I mean, listen, out of all the podcasts that I've listened to that are AAF related, there's maybe a handful that I really find entertaining from start to finish. And the fact that you guys vibe off each other as good as you do, I don't think there's really anything you need to improve on because, to be honest with you, it's more about your relationship together as far as how you guys are interacting with each other that brings out the best in both of you. So in my professional opinion, and I put that in quotes because you can see it on podcasts, I think that your guys' sound and your guys' presentation is among the top 5, I would say, in podcasts as far as the AAF is concerned. So I wouldn't change a thing, you two. You guys are doing fabulous work, and I don't think you sound like a boob at all.
Well, you heard it here first. The teacher and professional gave us an A+, and I guess that's the end of the interview. We'll just be done for today.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for coming on the show.
No, we appreciate that. We're definitely goofballs, so we're just having fun with it. But
and that's the way it should be. I know that there's so many people out there that they want to be, I want to be a sports journalist, and they take themselves so seriously. But we live in a world now where the line between journalism and entertainment is so blurred that if you don't come with content that people can actually enjoy putting in their ears or putting in their car, I think you're just wasting people's time because stats and all that other stuff. And me and Hassan talked about it on our show. Stats are great and in-depth analysis is fabulous, but so many people are going to try to do that because that's what they think people want. And so when you come with something different, fresh meme episodes, things like that, you got to give content that other people aren't giving out there. And I think that's where a lot of these beginning podcasters are getting crooked is they want to sound like they're professional when all they need to do is just give stuff that people want. So
Yeah, put off some personality and something that's interesting to listen to. Yeah,
exactly.
I can find stats in 3 seconds online. So,
Yeah,
I'm not going to listen to a 30-minute podcast for that. So,
exactly.
yeah. Well, why don't you walk us in? We got some of your background, but tell us how you got started on the AAF. I mean, you've been doing it since early December, as far as I can tell. So you were right there
Yeah.
in the formation still.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. So, I mean, I knew the AAF was a thing, right? It was back in March or something like that they announced it. But in March, I just had launched a podcast regarding the Ottawa Red Blacks of the CFL. Was knee deep in that at that point. So there was no way I was going to try to do anything else as far as launching a new podcast was concerned. And even still, in the early days of the AAF, I didn't know if they were going to launch or anything, right? I mean, nobody knew. So I just said, well, you know what? I'm going to stick to the CFL, stick to the Red Blacks, and we'll see what happens. And then, the Red Blacks season kind of ended unceremoniously with a loss in the Grey Cup, and I was a little depressed and disappointed. And the show was going to come to an end, and I thought, man, this is sad. And then I stumbled across the Memphis AAF podcast, which is now the Express and Goal podcast, and I heard Daniel and Michelle just have a blast talking AAF. And I thought, you know what? And then my little Google fingers hit the screen and I tried to figure out who else was doing AAF podcasts. And, I found the Shipyard and a couple other ones, but nobody was doing actual entire league AAF podcasts yet. And I said, this is where I can fit in. And so I cracked the mic open, the week after the Grey Cup. And I said, I am doing this podcast, or maybe it was 2 weeks after the Grey Cup, but I said, I'm doing this podcast and I'm going to make it about the AAF and we're just going to see where this goes. And, given my experience that I had just had over the course of the CFL season, I knew to reach out to team reporters and team presidents. And, I wasn't afraid to ask anybody for an interview because the worst they can say is no. And then you just go someplace else.
Yeah.
And find somebody that says yes. So I did that, and we're here now. We're talking about the AAF. It's amazing, isn't it?
It's awesome. Yeah, we're constantly on your tails, kind of watching what you're doing and learning from you. You do have no fear. And it's awesome. I wanted to ask, actually, what's been some of the highlights of your podcast? I mean, you've had big interviews. You've had I really liked the segments on the history of the cities that we talked about when I was on your podcast. But what's been like your favorite? What's been your highlight?
The highlight for me is literally watching this community grow. And it has nothing to do with my show or anything else. It from the start, watching the folks that were early adopters, and then, our little podcast community that got together. And I think for me, the funnest thing, and to be honest with you, the highlight for me was when I brought Daniel and Michelle on the show, because they, to me, like, you guys say that you were hot on my tail, but I was hot on their tail. Like, I literally worshiped the ground they walked on, because they had and still do, in my opinion, the premier show in the AAF, because they have this you and they, not to say that you're married, but you guys have that dynamic that they have where they're having fun. And Michelle, makes no apologies for the fact that she doesn't know things. And Daniel, doesn't come off as a guy that's trying to know more than he knows. Right. And you took a ride with them together as they grew as podcasters. And I don't know, for me, that's I'm a geek and I love podcasts. That little dynamic played out well for me. So when they came on my show, I mean, I was basically, the fanboy, and I couldn't really get through the interview without gushing quite a bit over them. So, and I think that brought a little validation to me too, because I thought, well, if these guys can come on my show and say, thank you for being, thank you for having us as guests, then maybe I'm doing something right.
Okay, so totally agree with you on Daniel and Michelle. Michelle might be my inspiration as a podcaster. She's so awesome. I'm serious. She's great. And then you being on our show feels so cool. Like, we're like the you again, but with another podcaster, and it's really awesome. Being a part of this community has been like the most exciting thing. It's a highlight of like my at least last decade. But yeah, so okay, other questions before we hop into the whole Johnny Manziel talk, which we know is coming here shortly. Um, where, how long are you going to be are you going to cover like year round the AF, or are you going to like, what's your season plans for the Alliance Football Podcast?
I'll go as long as there's news to cover. I'm not going to. I mean, here's the thing, and this is the same with the CFL, and I know the NFL guys do the same thing. With the CFL season being over in like the end of November, there's really not a lot to actually dive into until free agency starts to hit, and then the draft, and then the schedule. And actually, the CFL's done a lot of a good actually parsing out information now over the course of the offseason, to where there's something to talk about every couple of weeks. And that's, I think, what's going to happen with this AAF, because here's the thing, there's going to be, especially after the end of the season, folks signing these futures contracts or these practice squad roster contracts. And so that's a good opportunity to talk about who's getting NFL looks, right? So you can get a couple of episodes out of that. Then I guess when they start announcing how the draft is going to be. So I guess the long answer to your short question is wherever there's news and whenever there's news, I'll try to at least do something every couple of weeks, because I'm not going to try to come up with nothing. That's the worst thing a podcaster can do, is just to keep going because they don't want to pod fade. But at the same time, if you're making up stories and if you're trying to dig too deep, they're going to be not compelling episodes, and people are going to just tune out because it's not AAF season anymore. You'll see your listenership drop, and you'll get discouraged, and you probably want to give up before next season. So leave them wanting more, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on Twitter, I've already proclaimed you to be our official CFL expert. I hope you don't mind.
Not at all.
So how did you become a Ottawa fan? You're in California.
Yeah, geographically that makes zero sense, doesn't it? Well, okay, so NFL season was over, and I'm a fantasy football guy. Like I've been playing since '99, and I dove headlong into NFL, fantasy season long DFS. It's just I've been a fantasy guy. So there's this thing when you're addicted to drugs and you're trying to quit cold turkey, and you just, not that I know, but I've heard and I've seen on TV that people get the shakes, and then they block out their families, and they try to score the next hit. And I was doing the same thing with football. I just couldn't find any. So I was surfing the channels, and I saw CFL was coming up, and I thought, let's see. So I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna watch some football, and then I decided to pick a team. And so I was looking and doing my research, and I saw that Ottawa was a relatively new team. It was 3 years old, the current incarnation of the team. And I thought, well, I'm a new fan. This is a new team. I'll go with them. So I tweeted out, hey, CFL fans, I'm picking the Red Blacks as my team. And I tagged the team Twitter. And sure enough, they liked it and retweeted it and answered me back within about, I don't know, a half hour. And from right then and there, I was like, I know that it's not the team that's answering me back.
What?
Sorry, don't mean to break any glass here. But the fact that the social media team took a couple seconds to acknowledge me, no NFL team's going to do that. So I was hooked from then on. It just became a passion of mine. And the Red Blacks have been such a great organization to be a fan of and to work with, that they've got my love until their last day as a CFL franchise.
That's very cool. Well, let's spin your knowledge and fandom of the CFL into some Johnny talk, since he is now joining the AAF. If you're under a rock and haven't seen that he's signed with Memphis Express. So, Rod, what are for people that don't watch the CFL, what are some of the main differences in the game between NFL, CFL, AAF? It's yardage.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, well, there's a few glaring differences. If you're going to turn on a CFL game for the first time, you're going to notice that one, the field is longer and wider. So and the end zones are actually 20 yards deep as opposed to 10 yards for the. If you see the big C on the field, that means that's the 55-yard line. So there's an extra a few yards there on the field, and it's wider. And then of course there's only 3 downs. That's something that throws a lot of people as well. Whereas in the NFL, you can run on first down and maybe get 2 yards, and you still got a couple more downs to work with. In the CFL, you run for 2 yards, you better hope you get those 8 and second down, because then you're punting on third if you don't. So that's another thing that people can't really, American fans have a hard time with, because we're so conditioned to watch 4 downs. And then one of the other biggest things is that what they call the waggle. And that's where the receivers can get a running start toward the line of scrimmage before the ball is snapped. And so, it leads to a bunch of interesting routes and also defensive schemes, for them. And then, of course, the 12th man. Both sides of the ball have 12 players instead of 11. So there's a lot of folks that don't get adjusted to that as well. And that's where, we'll talk about him in a second, but I think that's a lot of the guy who shall be named later's problems in the CFL were.
Well, let's go there now. That's the follow-up anyway, is what was his experience in the CFL like, as a fan from your perspective, but also did he grow at all? And what can we expect as he takes the knowledge that he gleaned from playing up north, bring it back down here?
So, man, can you hear the exasperation in my voice?
Totally.
We're sorry.
No. This has to be talked about. And I'm trying to avoid it on my podcast, but it's got to be talked about. And it's probably going to get the most clicks ever because these people are clamoring for him. But so the Johnny Manziel saga itself started in the spring league. I don't know if anybody remembers that spring league stint that he did with whatever team he played for. I don't even know what it was, but the spring league is like this little, I don't know. It's like a blip. It's like 4 games, like literally 4 games is the entire season. And so Johnny Manziel got a look in that spring league and didn't even play a lot at all. Like they hyped that he was going to be there. And I think he played like a half, if that, in the entire season of the spring league. And he was horrible in it. But then all of a sudden, here comes the CFL and he's looking at the CFL and for an entire season, he kept the entire country of both countries, America and Canada, kind of in a lurch where, is he going to go to the CFL? Is he not? Is Kaepernick going to go to the CFL? Is he not? So there was all this buzz about whether or not Johnny was going to come. And then finally last season, the Hamilton Tiger Cats decided to sign him. But the CFL as a league has a lot more, and I don't want to disparage the NFL. Well, maybe I do. I don't care. The CFL has a lot more, I think, concern over the welfare, not just the physical welfare, but the mental welfare of their players. And they're constantly trying to take care of them as human beings before football players. And so part of the stipulation that Randy Ambrosi, the commissioner of the league, brought Johnny in on was you will have meetings with counselors. You will be given every opportunity to kind of quell any of these off-field distractions that you've come here with. Because we don't want that distraction. We want you as a football player to be right and to play the game the way it's supposed to be played. So that was part of the stipulation, right? So he comes to Hamilton and everybody in the entire Canadian media industry just was pumping Manziel. But here's the thing. Hamilton had a good quarterback by themselves. They had Jeremiah Masoli, who used to play for the 49ers for a little bit. And he did very well in the last 8 games of the season before and almost led them to a Grey Cup appearance. So, it wasn't like Manziel was going to come in and start from day one. And so the problem with that was every time Masoli threw an interception, every time Masoli made a bad decision, the first thing out of any of those announcers' mouths was, well, man, Masoli must be looking over his shoulder now. Manziel is warming up. Which Manziel was never warming up and wasn't going to warm up. Right. Yeah. So I'm saying, like, every time, every mistake Masoli made, it was always, well, here, Johnny Manziel might be the next person to step in. So anyways, Masoli did wonderfully for like the first 4 or 5 games. Maybe Johnny saw a little preseason action and that was about it. So there was no way that Manziel was going to get playing time behind Masoli. So what the Montreal Alouettes did was ended up trading for him, and they gave up a lot. They gave up like a 1st round pick, a really strong defensive player. So they basically sold the house for this guy. He showed up.
Hurts even more now to hear that. Jeez.
Oh God. Yeah, seriously. It was a bad decision overall. So, but Johnny had that 2-year clause or 2-year contract. And the only way he was going to get out of it is if, he missed meetings and breached the contract that they set up. So in Montreal, Manziel really didn't do much better. Like, he showed flashes of his old Johnny Money self, but he never really led that team, and they never really responded to him in a way that I think, and he was saying the right things, interviews and stuff like that. He was saying the right things, but he just, I don't know, he just never fit in well in the CFL. And I think that his attitude had a lot to do with that, because he wasn't, as much as he was saying he was a team player, like, you could see it. You could see that
you didn't have the buy-in. He didn't have the buy-in. Yeah.
No, not even close. He was in it for himself. And that's the kind of player I think he is, which is why I'm screaming from the top of my lungs to these people on Twitter. You didn't watch what happened last season in the CFL. You're the same fans from the CFL that were saying, bring me Johnny football, bring me Johnny football. Well, be careful what you ask for, because you're going to get him.
Yeah, I think everyone that's so passionate about the AAF is just like excited about the publicity stunt aspect more than the football player. Like, I can't imagine that this is going to go real well for Johnny football wise, but it's definitely going to put more eyeballs on the league. You got to think.
You say that, but even the CFL ratings didn't bump. I mean, they bumped a little bit that first game, but then they fell back off. The novelty wore off really quick when they realized, one, Johnny wasn't starting. Because here's the thing, and this is where I think so many people are getting all riled up about, is they think he's going to take the field day one and go. Like, I don't see that happening. Like, you literally are giving this guy a week to learn a playbook, and he's learned, man, 1, 2, 3, 4 playbooks, 5 now, in the last 3 seasons, right? 5 playbooks this guy has had to learn in the last 5 seasons. You're trying to tell me that he's going to come in and learn an entire offense, which took Silvers, Mettenberger, and Hackenberg, 7, 8 weeks to learn. You're going to give him 1 week and come in and try to do magical things. Expectations are so ridiculous for this guy right now. He's going to sit, hopefully, I hope he's going to sit for at least a couple of weeks till he gets his feet ready and then come in and maybe do something. But these people that think he's going to come in and take this league by storm day one, come on, man. That's ridiculous. That's like saying that I could walk onto that field and do magical things on day one, right? That's yeah.
Well, I think Silver showed enough that Manziel probably does, sit out for a few weeks, but the league, Bern and I were talking about this on our podcast that came out yesterday. The league made a decision as a single entity to welcome him in. You know what I mean? Whether it was going to be Memphis or San Antonio or whatever, it's still the alliance it's so unique in that regard that they had the sign off essentially to say, like, yeah, we believe in him, and they're going to make an effort to get him on the field at some point soon. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, they could not. To have him, I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, maybe not this week, maybe not next week, but I'm sure by week, what would that be? By week 9, I think he'd be ready to actually, come on. Maybe he'll come in some short yard packages or some, somebody brought it up. I think it was the Daniel brought it up that maybe, 2-point packages for him to come in just to get him on the field. And, again, to me, and somebody said to me on Twitter, well, he signed a 3-year contract, so he's definitely going to be in there at least that long. And I said, yeah, he signed a 2-year contract with the CFL, buddy. So
yeah, exactly.
Contract he wants.
Yeah. Well, I think
just seems like.
Oh, go ahead.
Don't interrupt me, Haas, when I'm finally coming in to talk and say something. Gosh, you're always doing that to me. It just seems like whatever he does first. So, like, if he totally bombs on his first series out, or if he does totally awesome, it's going to be like, just regardless, absolute noise for the AAF. And in a very, like, I think the public is really going to engage it, but just depends on if they're going to, like, develop him a little bit or just throw him out there because they don't care if it's negative publicity is still good publicity, right? Like, that's what I'm kind of curious about, if they're going to throw him out there just to, like, stir things up.
Well, they say all or what is it? What do they say? They say that
there's no such thing as bad.
Yeah, that's the saying I was looking for. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They could feed him to the wolves essentially, just to say, like, hey, here's Johnny Manziel. Our league is good. This guy was a top, pick. Like, if you're gonna be a cynic, that's one way to look at it for sure. That, like, they're not. I think that they've branded themselves so much on developing players, though, that I don't know that they wouldn't do that, but we'll see. They got to get him out there.
They'll develop him. They will. I look, here's the thing. Okay. We seen this story before. This league is this story, but here's the thing about Johnny Manziel versus like a guy like Christian Hackenberg or Zach Mettenberger or Zach Stacy or Trent Richardson for that matter. Like Johnny Manziel has literally spurned every league that he's been in. Like this is like
he plays the villain. Yeah,
exactly. And this is like going, after a fine young partner, right? And your friends warn you, listen, man, that person has burned every person they've been with before. And you're like, no, this time it'll be different. I know how to handle them. And then all of a sudden there you are getting burned and you're eating ice cream on your couch, watching Netflix, crying into your spoon. And all your friends are sitting there saying, we told you. Well, what'd you do that for?
Yeah. There's something about it that just feels kind of wrong. Like there's so much community outreach too, and like seeing the guys do all these, and they're not like the key QBs going out and doing like Boys and Girls Club and St. Jude's Hospital, but there's been such a like very like community synergy and very like positive vibe to the AAF, and I just can't really see Johnny Manziel like meshing well with that. Like he just rubs everybody the wrong way, and I don't know, maybe like Haas had some positive things to say, like maybe he comes in and this is his opportunity to look really good and be a clean guy and get his act back together, and the AAF can be that for him. We should be a little bit more positive, right guys?
No, but I've been through this story. I'm the guy telling you that you don't have to have this relationship again. Like the CFL said the same thing.
Oh my God, I'm that girl. I am that girl that cries in her spoon. You guys, this is why I look at me. I'm like, oh, Johnny Manziel. I hated him this morning, but now I think I'm going to give him a fifth chance.
What's the most likely scenario for Johnny in 2020? Is it that he is in a stable AAF relationship, that he has an NFL tryout and makes the team as a backup or something, or C, that he has burned another bridge and moved on to the XFL? Which one is it?
The last one. That is what's going to happen. Because here's the thing, right? He's not getting back to the NFL. He is just not. If he was getting back to the NFL, he would have done it as a part of the CFL. Because here's the thing. There were so many eyeballs on him in the CFL. There was an opportunity for him to show. And listen, football is football, okay? 3 down, 4 down, 8 down. It doesn't matter. Like what you put on film, coaches are going to see what you do to perform in that down. If they're not looking at whether or not you picked up, the nuances of the CFL. Can you still throw the ball? Are you still mobile? He threw a pick on his you posted the video. He threw a pick on his very first play in the CFL. And
it was a bad pick too.
And then he did so many more. Like he threw a lot more interceptions than he did anything else because he was trying too hard to impress people when he should just been shut up and played football.
Were the Alouettes a good team in general though?
Oh, the Alouettes are the worst team in the league, actually.
So he went to a bad situation again then.
Well, he did, but it wasn't like, listen, if he goes to a bad situation and turns it around, right? He's the savior. Now he's Johnny Football, the savior, right? But here's the built-in excuses that people on Twitter are talking about. That was the same thing in the CFL. Well, he had to learn 3-down football, and he didn't know about the waggle and blah blah blah. Well, it's like, okay, he didn't. But if you're a football player and you want to play football, you learn where you're at, right? You don't keep one foot in the door of another world just to hope you get back there. He's the worst kind of person to do that. But I don't know. I will watch this, of course, because I watch the AAF and I love it to death. But I will not be surprised if he falls flat on his face one more time.
I totally agree, like from a performance standpoint, but it's just going to be very interesting to watch. It's going to be very weird to see him out there. I think if he literally put together like a full season of saying the right things, doing the right things, playing well, then he's still 27, 28 years old at that point. He has a chance, but you're right. Like he already had that chance. Like the CFL has produced tons of great quarterbacks that have gone up north and come back, So
Doug Flutie.
Why did he blow it up there? You're right.
Yeah. Warren Moon, like Jeff Garcia, like the names go on and on and on. And you can't, you can't put him in that camp too. Bern, why do you love him so much?
Oh no, I don't. but I have a heart, and I don't know. I feel like the AF, like there is something special about it, and I just want to have so much hope. I know I shouldn't.
You wanted to like heal him, is what you want. You're rooting for the AF to heal him.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
wanted
you're rooting
him.
for.
I want him to be the case study that shows that the AAF can really turn things around for anybody.
Okay, listen, that right there, you have made me soften my stance just a little bit, because I never came at it from that angle, to where if the AAF can do something with Johnny Manziel, maybe that will give other players an opportunity and a chance to say, hey, look, if they turn this turd around, then I will sign up and I will do this. Maybe I can play in the NFL again. Because there's a lot of players that probably need that kind of coddling. And if the AAF can be the Dr. Phil of the football world, then, I'm on board. Good. Thank you, Bern. Thank you for that.
Okay, I'm an eternal optimist, though, so and most of my hopes don't turn out as they will. But you know what? All we can do is watch and see how it goes. And I'll be super interested to see which week he plays, and if it's this week or the next, we'll all have a lot to talk about over the next few weeks. That's for sure. So it's good for us podcasters.
Yeah, I think he does.
All right. Well, I think if we've Manziel'd ourselves out, we could probably wrap this up. Do you have any more things to say about how much you love Manziel, Rod?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna buy his Tops Now card.
Because you love him now, right?
It comes out.
Oh my gosh, you guys! I can't believe you just said that. Did you just say his Tops card?
Yeah,
Tops Now. Yeah,
his Tops Now card.
Hey, Tops Now card. I literally bought it today.
What'd you get?
I bought it this morning. I bought Manziel's Tops Now card this morning.
No, it's not out yet, is it?
Yes, it is. I saw it in my feed and I was like, what are you doing, Auburn? And I just went through the process. I PayPal checked out and I bought his Tops Now card. And I have no idea why I've just done this. I self-reflected and I was like, what am I doing with my life? Who am I? And Haas, I'll send you both the picture of like my checkout confirmation, because I just stared at it for a second. And
I am stupefied right now. Like, I'm speechless about this. This is
look, Haas,
bonkers.
Look at that. What does it say?
Thank you for your purchase, Tops. Yeah. Wow.
I just bought the Carter Schultz one.
Oh, that's a deserved card. That's a good buy.
He's balling.
But Manziel has a Tops Now card. I can officially walk away from the AF podcasting world and now just go lie in a grave.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I just admitted that. I thought it would be good for a segment. I don't know, guys. I really lost my mind. Okay, before I get into my own grave here, let's wrap this thing up. This has been a really awesome conversation. You are so brilliant, Rod. I enjoy listening to you. This has been so fun to talk to you. Not only are you very informative on football and the AAF, but you're also an awesome person across the board. Like, you've been entirely supportive of the AAF community and like all AAF podcasters. Like, you started or we're part of that thread that's going, and you're like not competitive, you're supportive, and you're so cool. And I've totally enjoyed getting to know you. So thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Tell everyone where they can follow you and listen and such.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm going to take that whole 45-second clip and actually replay it every day, every morning when I wake up now, because that will be my affirmation. That will be the what I play to get pumped up for the day. So no, you can find the show at Alliance FB Pod. It is the Alliance Football Podcast, and you can find me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez as well. I don't do any other social media stuff because, first of all, I don't really have enough time, and second of all, I don't know how to use everything but Twitter. So I'm scared of the new interwebs. Just find me on Twitter. It's the best place to do it. And like, Bern says, I will talk to anybody and everybody. I don't care. I love this community. I love the AAF, and I love the opportunity for all of us to get together and talk about something so passionately. So thanks for having me on, you guys. This is another one off of my checklist because I wanted to be on from day one when I saw you. So I'm glad you guys said yes.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Oh my gosh,
thanks for having us.
You made my week. Thanks, Rod. All right, have a great rest of your day, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely, guys. Thank you.